A number of years ago, I actually became qualified. There's a certification to become a certified online facilitator, I think was the official title. And I started it and thought, I absolutely disagree with online learning. All learning should be in a classroom, get all of the benefits of actually seeing the delegates face to face. And actually, when you actually find out what you can do virtually, it actually works really well. So I was quite surprised and was quite converted to kind of online learning. So what I thought, and having watched what we see at the minute, there's lots of people who are holding meetings and also facilitating webinars, and the step to kind of online learning is probably one step further. In the same way, there's a difference between a presentation and giving some training. So some of this that I'm going to talk, you'll say, well, actually, that's blatantly obvious, Eileen. And I love the old Stephen Covey's comment, which says, just because it's common sense doesn't mean it's common practice. So the 10 things I'm going to cover off, you may know, but hopefully you'll kind of, at least one of the things will be useful for you. So, right then, we now try moving it. Oh, yes, we go. Right then, all right, then I've worked out where the controls are now, and it takes a minute to catch up. Right then, lesson 1 is prepare. Right now, that seems to make good sense for you as the trainer. But one of the other things we also need to do when we're delivering learning or any kind of thing where we're going to want the delegates to have access to things, we need to tell them. You need to tell them you're going to have a screen. You're going to have to tell them they're going to need internet access and a piece of paper and a pen, because it's a bit late when they're sitting down on the first day. So the same way as we send in a joining letter and say this is what you need to bring to the course, you need to prepare them from a technology perspective. And one of the things that certainly we're deciding to do is to give the delegates just a kind of a half an hour, 45 minute kind of log on session, so they all actually understand and they can have a bit to play, so you don't have that delay start on the first thing on the course delivery. Second thing that you, as a trainer, quite interesting, what we've just had with Lindsay about sharing the right screen, it's always useful if you're presenting to log on twice. Yes, log on once as a presenter and log on once as a delegate. So you have 2 screens open, so at any time you can see what the delegate's seeing. So it's interesting. So it was great, John kind of raised the fact to Lindsay, but as a trainer, it's quite good to have 2 screens. You're also going to have lots to do, lots of things on your screen. You're going to have the polls ready. You're going to have links that you want to copy into chat. You need to have chat open. So, you know, against all good practice, you're all going to be doing multitasking, but having 2 screens, even if one of them, as I said, is only a tablet, definitely worth having 2 screens. Third point is upfront and personal. You would never, as a trainer, sit in a classroom and let a delegate walk in and just kind of take their seat. You would always welcome them individually. And again, when you're doing virtual classroom training, you have to get to know all of the delegates. Now, on a webinar like this, it's very hard to kind of get a personal relationship with kind of all kind of the 40 or 50 people who we've got on here. As a training course, you need to limit the numbers so you can have that same kind of known everybody, be able to talk to everybody as you go through the course. And as everybody comes into the course, you should always take the time to say, right then, John, can we just test that you can see me? Is your microphone working okay? Can you just kind of speak, and can we've got the speakers working? So you do that with every single kind of individual. And as you go through the course, you need to maintain that kind of personal relationship with each and one and every of the delegates. As I say, a bit different from a webinar, but certainly from a training perspective. Fourth point, set the ground rules. Now, I find this all best practice would say whenever you're preparing for facilitation, whenever you're doing a workshop, whenever you're doing a meeting, the first thing you always do is to set the ground rules. Now, we seem to have forgotten about doing that for meetings, and look how bad meetings end up. Yes, people on their phones, people playing on their laptops, running over time. And because I don't think in very many meetings, we kind of say, right then, let me just tell you how we're going to conduct this meeting. And we assume that everybody knows what the rules are, the unspoken rules for meetings. Well, actually, a lot of people have forgotten or need to be reminded of them, and it becomes very important when you go into a training environment, and particularly where we are at the moment, where this can be kind of quite new and it's quite different from how things we've done before. So important to kind of set the ground rules. And one important thing to remember about the ground rules is they're not your ground rules, they're the group's ground rules. So you can start off with some that you as a trainer, but you should always take the opportunity for the delegates to contribute to those ground rules and question and challenge. And you're looking for them to agree to the ground rules that are going to be abided by through the course. So interesting, this one is power down PowerPoint, right? If you're in a training classroom, you don't just use slides. You have lots of other tools at your disposal to use when you're doing some of the kind of the question and answer sessions and the group work. So as you've seen, if you've been on one of these before, and we're going to do it now, we're going to go off into rooms, we're going to use some external technologies. So make sure you've got a wide range of tools that you can use, and also that you know how to use them. Yes, so you will need to kind of practice before you get there, and bear in mind you're going to need to take time to let the delegates kind of get them used to them if they've not used them before. So you have to make sure you've got time to do that. And then the next thing to remember is to, eventually when this comes, is to power up PowerPoint. Now, best practice says when you're online, you should be doing something every 5 minutes. Yes, nothing kind of these. But the problem is, if you get too fancy with your PowerPoint, it is completely distracting. Yes, so you have to get the right balance, because what they will see if you've got all of your course faces up, they won't necessarily see you like they would see you at the beginning of the class. They just see you there as a kind of a head amongst all of the other heads. So your slides have to keep bringing people back to the screen so they don't go off and start looking at their phone or reading their other screen. So you need something about every 5 minutes on your screen. Next thing to do is about managing the energy. Now, we've all heard of the classic post-lunch slump. Yes. Now, the problem is on a virtual training course, you're going to find people are sitting down all the time. So ideally, yes, I'm waiting for, I've put my request into Lindsay, right? We have to get a stand-up desk. So you can naturally have more energy when you're standing up. Now, the interesting thing is when you're delivering, you can kind of move or change. I love it, Lindsay. You can actually kind of change the energy by walking around the room. You've got less chances of doing that when all they see is your head. But also, if you see, you can probably see a bit more of me than you can of some of the other people here, because they're sitting here. So when you're delivering, the more you've got around here, the more you've got a chance to kind of change the energy. You should also have a range of energizers and things that they can pop up to do. We were reading a great article this morning that suggested having a 45-minute chair disco, just to kind of get everybody kind of moving around. So let's all do a quick shuffle. Come on, I can see you all. Quick shuffle, yes, just to get a bit right, because you can see everybody who takes part. So it's hard enough in a training environment in a classroom to manage that energy, and to be able to read that energy can become very much more difficult when all you can see is kind of 12 faces. Eighth one is about chat amongst yourselves. Now, we've got chat going. Did I say 45-minute disco? 45-second disco. We've got the chat going here. For people who are new to virtual learning, you really need to encourage them to kind of play with chat. And the other thing is, as a trainer, it's good to keep an eye on it, but you're not there to answer every single question or every single thing that comes up on chat. So you need to make it clear to the delegates that the chat's for their benefit as well as your benefit. So they can ask questions and ask amongst themselves. And I say, just keep an eye. Most of the technology we use allows you to download it afterwards. So if you think you've missed anything off, you can kind of follow up with an email with the delegates. Number 9, exercises. Now, interestingly, and I asked this question of somebody, said, if you ran this course in a classroom, would you have more exercises? And said, well, yes. And I said, well, you should have the same number of exercises as you do in a course, because the exercises where they embed the learning and the practice, and therefore if you want to give a fully rounded experience and true learning, then you need to get your exercises. It takes a bit of thought to make sure that they work over the virtual medium, but there's lots of hints and tips out there, the kind of exercises that you can do. And be fine to let the delegates go off, particularly when you're doing an internal course. You're right that you're going to have, we're going to shut the screens down for 90 minutes, go off, contact on WhatsApp or whatever way you want to go and do that, and go and come back with your results. So you don't have to be monitoring the whole time. And then finally, do the demming. Yes, it comes with practice. Ask for feedback all the time. every session, anything we want to do, I always put a screen in at the end and get people to kind of actually jot them down so I can take them away and think about it. It takes practice, and for a lot of us, it's kind of coming back to something or doing something for the first time. So that's my timer finished. 10 minutes run through.